So the next session is Disrupting Mobility with Claims Solutions, led by IMS. And IMS have been producing market-leading telematics solutions for a number of years now, and at the front of developing technology in what is an increasingly important area of insurance and mobility. We're really happy to have with us Leon Hurst, CEO of Mobility at IMS, and Alan Cottrell, who is Director at Track Global. Hi guys, great to have you with us.
Hi there.
Hi Stuart.
First up, can you tell us a little bit about IMS, the company, what you do and how you do it?
Super, thanks Stuart. In a nutshell, I standing for insurance and M standing for mobility. So we're an insurance and a mobility company. There's variously a 20-year heritage in North America and a 10-year heritage here in the UK, Europe, and the Middle East, where these are all the major markets we operate in. In the insurance world, we have both personal lines and commercial lines solutions, and effectively we underpin usage-based insurance schemes. And on the mobility side, we support mobility operators with connected services that are necessary for them to manage operational costs in their fleet, or actually it unlocks the customer proposition to their customers. The third major component actually is Carrot, which for us is a bit of a sandbox. And I think maybe Alan, considering he was here in the days when we set up Carrot, he should give us a bit of a summary.
So Carrot is a really useful part of the business for us. Carrot is a predominantly new driver based insurance broker in the UK, and we launched Carrot because when we were a relatively new start business, we couldn't get insurers to take us seriously. So we had the crazy idea of launching our own and then using that to prove that our products work. So when we talk about the benefits that we believe our products can deliver, we'll take you into Carrot and show you it in real life, delivering the benefits that we claim it can deliver. So it's like a demonstrator for insurance. It's a really useful marketing department that makes a profit.
That's really interesting clarification, Alan, because I'm not sure the market fully understands that. I think that, but to have an insurance company that's owned by a telematics company really gives you market-leading R&D, doesn't it? I mean, that's very smart, isn't it? You talked about the mobility sector, guys. I think everybody's aware of how solutions work in the insurance sector, but maybe less so in the mobility sector. Can you just describe the mobility sector for us?
Yeah, Stuart. I mean, it's almost futile to try and define something that's fairly various and complex. So I'll stay reasonably high level. Roughly, the way I look at it is it's a Venn diagram of vehicle fleets that are either operated, owned, or rented. And in the rental space particularly, you've got long-term rental and short-term rental. So long-term would be effectively finance, lease, services, even subscription services, which are emerging from different manufacturers. Pivotal is a good example from Jaguar Land Rover, most recently launched. And in the short-term world, we understand daily rental car companies, but increasingly car clubs have become very popular. Actually, COVID has had a positive effect for them because the usage has moved from mass transit and into car clubs. And then you've got ride-hailing services. So this is the kind of an attempt to draw out what the Venn diagram looks like. And they all have slightly varying needs, but there are a lot of common needs emerging across all of these different mobility providers.
Do you see the insurance and mobility sectors converging as we move forward?
Yes, I think it's a mega trend. It's a trend that's probably started a good 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still going to continue, and it's accelerating. It operates almost at two levels. So when we think of actual consumers and what's happening in their worlds, we're all moving a little bit away from a life of ownership of things to a life of using. So we don't go and buy so much music anymore. We go and have a subscription to Spotify. Actually, the humble bike is being replaced by fancy Peloton bikes, which is a subscription service. And the same is happening across mobility and insurance. In the mobility world, flexible leasing, so subscription-based leasing. Sogo is a new mobility company who's come to the fore with really flexible schemes. Car clubs, as I said, very popular. And in the insurance world, well, we've just experienced now our second lockdown. Hopefully we're emerging from it. And what's happened? There are lots of parked up vehicles. And what's become suddenly a lot more popular in the last 12 months, but mileage-based insurance schemes. So there's this kind of customer-oriented component to it, but it turns out that for both of these industries, the usage schemes are powered by connected technologies, or the old word we would use would be telematics technologies. So actually the enabling tech and platforms are shared as well. So it's happening at consumer and the propositional level, but also in terms of the enabler level.
So again, to join the dots, maybe in very simple terms, there's a show me the money question in terms of a value proposition for usage-based insurance. If we use any acronyms, by the way, we're going to explain what the acronyms are on the ticker tape at the bottom of the screen. And usage-based insurance is something that we'll see a lot of in terms of an acronym. Can you just do me a quick summary of the show me the money proposition? Where does it actually drive value, the usage-based insurance for mobility and insurance?
Shall I pick up the carrot model to explain our own experience in the UK market? And globally, we see the UK very much as a new driver market. And a lot of what we do in North America, for example, is more mainstream and mileage based. But in very simple terms, we look at the upstream benefits within Carrot, and we focus on the drivers that we identify really quickly as having a much higher propensity to have a crash. And we've got algorithms that are linked to real crash data, so that we know a badly behaving driver in our algorithm is 6 times more likely to have a crash than a good driver. And then we set about changing their behavior. So we either make them better drivers, or we encourage them to insure with somebody else because they're not a risk that we want. And the net result for Carrot is a reduction in accident rates of 42%. So in very simple terms, the upstream benefits is we see less accidents, and then we can apply the claims tools when an accident does take place to mitigate the cost of a claim as much as possible. So we're paying the right amount for the claim, and we settle it as early as possible.
So just to really simplify it, so you enable much better selection of risk and management of risk once you insure someone. And if they, in unfortunate circumstances, they do have a claim, you're able to manage that claim much more proactively, much more cheaply, into a better customer experience.
Absolutely, sure. And we start that process from the point that they buy the policy, whether that's 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, we're trying to book an appointment to install the box, and that's the first stage in the risk management process for us. Because if they're not willing to and accept an appointment to install the box, that's immediately a red flag for us.
Yeah. So,
Stuart, then the correlation to the mobility world, I think, is quite important, because we've been talking about convergence here. Yes. If you're a mobility operator, and imagine, you know, the more advanced ones who've got a total wrapped service, which is almost, you know, a subscription for a car, and it's just add fuel in a way, which could be electricity. And in their world, obviously they're carrying asset value in terms of the stock of vehicles that they have. And the same principles are at play. There is risk selection, there's intervention, and actually even in the more sophisticated cases, you can have dynamic pricing. So, you know, the exact same tools that are used in an insurance world need to be and are being used in a mobility world, and increasingly so. The best accident is, you know, the accident that never happened. So the more we can drive that upstream into the kind of world of behavioral assessment, then the better for at least a large number of companies. That's
really interesting, and really does give a sense of where the value and the money is. Just again, in terms of sort of simplification, looking at your products, that you don't just deliver telematic solutions through one medium. You have a range of telematics delivery mechanisms. Can you just go through what they are and how they can potentially work together?
Well, okay. So we're sensor agnostic because not every sensor suits every particular situation or even every geography. So if we give some examples, fixed box installs are particularly popular in the UK today. Historically in the US, it's been OBD devices, and they've been very, very good at collecting behavioral data, mileage information, and actually also crash detection. But they do come at a certain cost point. And so over the last 2 years, and as we are extending into the future, there is a desire to try and achieve lower cost points and even better quality. So what you see emerging as new sensor types is the humble app on a phone, which can do a lot, especially around the behavioral piece. Although once you need to be able to reconstruct accidents and there's bent metal, then the app on its own does struggle. But you don't need to go and add lots of hardware into a vehicle. You can add a small little device, or we call ours Wedge. It's a small little battery powered device. And that's got the extra sensors that are very precise for being able to detect, when crashes happen and create F0, and then the whole claims value chain, which is where most of the value actually gets extracted in claims, is in the downstream, not just the F0 itself. So app and Wedge are merging as being highly popular. The other one, which is also becoming very popular, is manufacturer data. And this is a slightly different kettle of fish. It is fragmented. Not all manufacturers are doing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. And not every model is necessarily supported. But in a world of mileage-only schemes, getting odometer readings through a manufacturer system, typically intermediated by somebody like IMS, that can be highly efficient and even more efficient than trying to send out hardware units. So it is for this reason that we have this agnostic data layer and sensor layer, and the different sensors get used for the different geographies and the different circumstances.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm really interested, and I think our audience will be really interested in all of the solutions, but the application of the what you call a downstream, which is the claims capture element of it. What's best at claims capture, and how do you see that evolving?
Alan, think you should take a go at that one. I think it's fair to say that not all sensors are born equal, and as Leon points out, the use case for each is really important. The reality is, for accurate crash detection, you need a device, whether that's a self-powered Wedge or a hardwired box, or an OBD device firmly fixed to the vehicle. So in North America, for example, where we use predominantly OBD devices, they're posted to the consumer and self-installed in the OBD port. Now, the OBD ports in North America are more accessible, so that works from a mileage capture point of view and behavior quite well. But it isn't a great crash resonator because they tend to move about, they vibrate, and the granular nature of the data required for accurate crash detection it's vital that the box is fitted properly to the vehicle firmly, which is why Wedge stuck to the windscreen, which is a great resonator, is a really useful crash detection tool. Because if you overwhelm claims teams with loads of false positives, they miss the ones that are real accidents, and they miss the really useful bits of data that are buried within huge amounts of data. We've had close to 10 years of experience with crash data, and we've discovered, as we were told at the start, by the way, it's a lot harder than it sounds. So dropping a box on the floor and getting an alert off the box isn't crash detection. And we've learned some really odd behaviors. Like, it's fair to assume that after a crash a car will stop, but in London, where they can't stop, they don't. They'll carry on driving until they can find somewhere safely to park, which means that if you look at the behaviour of the vehicle just after an impact, you won't detect crashes in London. We also have discovered that A car that accelerates from the scene of an impact, you would assume hasn't had a crash. But a car that's upside down on its roof on wet grass, bizarrely, accelerates. So, that the machine learning from real events is massively important to drive accurate crash detection and crash data. But fundamentally, you have to have a device, whether that's self-powered or hardwired to the vehicle, that is firmly fixed, which is why a mobile phone in a cradle or in your hand is not a great crash detector. It's great for recording journeys, and it can tell you whether you were at the scene of an accident or not, but I wouldn't rely on it to tell you it had a crash.
And how have the two sectors responded to the COVID crisis? Because obviously both insurance and mobility will have been impacted significantly, guys. What have you observed in the two sectors around the impact of COVID?
Oh, yeah, quite a few things. So we work very closely with our customers. On the mobility side, different customer segments have fared differently. It's fair to say that daily rental bore a fairly heavy hit immediately on the first COVID lockdown. In actual fact, we were tracking data around this, and their utilization dropped pretty much to about 60% immediately. But it's not all glum news. So, for example, LCV fleets, and particularly if you go into the parcel delivery component of them, they did drop, but they actually didn't drop that much. And in the second lockdown, the breadth of definition of what an essential driver is has actually broadened. So in actual fact, delivery is pretty much at kind of pre-COVID levels. Some statistics actually show that this Christmas was the best Christmas ever for parcel delivery fleets. And talking with one of our customers, they said that this year, every day in the lead up to Christmas was better than the best day of Christmas 2019. I think a leading indicator is quite interesting. We found that car clubs are actually a leading indicator coming out of lockdown. And what we've tracked is that their utilization has actually doubled. So they've been growing their fleet, and the number of subscribers to their fleet has astronomically grown as soon as we start to unlock. And I expect to see that as we emerge out of this lockdown as well. So that's what's happening in the mobility space. Alan, do you want to take a quick comment on the insurance space, probably around the usage models?
I think just to finish on mobility, though, and around particularly car club, I think people are going to be reluctant to travel on the tube on a Monday morning at rush hour. And I think they will be finding other ways to travel around major cities. So I think that space is going to grow. We've obviously seen a big impact in new driver in the UK because of the closure of the driving tests. So there's a lot of pent up demand that I think will come through, hopefully after we release the driving tests. But so it's been difficult from a trading point of view in the UK, but we've seen strong demand in North America and other markets for more mainstream usage-based insurance programs, because people are driving less and they're looking to buy products that reflect their behavior and are willing to accept a tracking device or an OBD device that monitors mileage, because it actually reflects their behavior and it's cheaper. People are looking to save money. So it's a real mixed economy of fortunes, I think, at the moment. But I think it's fair to say that COVID in our space, as it has on the high street, has just accelerated change that was coming anyway. So I think we're seeing behavioural patterns that we were anticipating 2 or 3 years out happening now.
And what would your call to action be to anyone in the audience that's anticipating an eventual return to lots more traffic and lots more accidents to pre-COVID levels in a post-COVID world? How do you think they should be responding to the situation that they're likely to face, as far as telematics is concerned?
Well, I think for those who are already on, let's call it the connected bus, then get ready, because as we unlock, I think we do all expect there to be quite an uplift in accidents. For those who haven't yet started on that journey, whether it's an insurer who hasn't really got an advanced usage-based scheme, or mobility providers who are not trying to do risk selection or manage the operational cost, now is the time to move, because there are a large number of companies who have used the operating and trading downtime to build up solutions which are being deployed to the market somewhat quietly over the last 12 months. So there will be some leaders who will emerge with very efficient operations, and pricing is quite tight as well, and it will be in a post-COVID world. So having operational efficiency will go directly to the bottom line.
Can't wait to get a chance to see this in more live action when we get a chance to demonstrate some of these solutions in September at the ILC ClaimsTech Live event. Listen, guys, that's been a really fascinating insight into the world of usage-based insurance and telematics. I think there's been a lot of demystification gone on there, which is no bad thing. I certainly understand a lot more about what you do than I did before, but looking forward to September when we'll hear more about your journey. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Stuart.